Warwickshire Fire and Rescue have run the hospital to home service since 2018, and you are a really embedded part of our team. Can you tell us a bit about what you do, because you're really just not a taxi service?
Yeah, so we're a real unique service, aren't we, in so many ways. So we aim to be at the hospital within an hour of the call coming in, so patients aren't left waiting around, and also beds are freed up for new patients coming in. Also then, when we get them home from hospital, we settle them in. We'll make sure all their needs are met. We'll make them a cup of tea, we'll cook them a meal, we'll make sure there's food in the cupboards, things like that. And we'll also refer on to other agencies.
Our chief aim being with fire service is to do a safe and well check. This is from a fire perspective chiefly. We check for not only working smoke alarms, but we need to know that they understand what that means. Do they know what a smoke alarm does? Will they be able to react to it if it went off in the middle of the night? Would they be able to hear it? This is where we can step in with specialist equipment to help people who are hard of hearing. And I think the beauty of our service is our background as well, because we all come from like social services, nursing, care backgrounds. We kind of look for the little things too, the little maybe where somebody is lacking something and they're not quite sort of flourishing as well as they should be. So you know, we can see where perhaps there isn't enough food in the fridge. We'll make a cup of tea, we'll have a little look in the fridge. We can just so many different things. They overloaded sockets, stuff like that. They don't realise that they're still using equipment that's years old that they shouldn't be using, so we can remove that with their permission and put something safer in place.
We spend time with them, we don't rush away, so we get to know them, we get to know their needs. We refer on to other agencies as well, so an agency we're referring a lot to at the moment is Act on Energy, because of the worries with the increase in the cost of living. But we'll also refer for social needs. We refer to Age UK, we'll refer to charities, like maybe the Stroke Association. We'll refer to social prescribers, all kinds of things, social services. So yeah, it's a real unique service, and the patients appreciate it so much. It gives them so much reassurance, because often patients are nervous when they're going home from hospital. They're being cared for in hospital, all of a sudden they're on their own again. So we'll spend that time with them in the home, and make sure that they're okay and that they feel safe before we go. So.
And I think that's really vital, isn't it? Because the other things you do is around slip, trips and falls, isn't it? And that type of assessment, and the timed up and go. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
So on our checklist form, we ask the staff on the ward why the person was admitted, and quite often that can be to do with falls or complications connected with that. So then on the journey home, we start asking that. We kind of slip that into the question a little bit. You know, what happened? Is this something that happens quite a bit? And then we kind of introduce the idea of referring to them to physiotherapy at home. And quite often they love that idea, because it means someone's coming out to them. They haven't got to worry about getting into hospital. And it's just a little bit of gentle physiotherapy, and it checks their environment, and they feel really reassured by that, don't they? I've noticed. And one chap even said to me once, look, I'm doing my exercises, I do them every day. So you just think that's really lovely to see it, you know, working to that person's advantage. So.
And that's great, isn't it? Because that helps with deconditioning that happens when patients are in hospital, and you're continuing that out in the community. And I'm sure you've got lots of really lovely stories to tell us. Are there any particular patients that you want to share the experience of how you've helped them? Because that makes it really real, doesn't it, for people who maybe are setting up services, or looking at additional things that their county councils maybe be able to help them commission.
I mean, I've had one gentleman we took home from hospital, and he lives on his own, very well-educated gentleman, absolutely lovely chap, but hadn't kind of sort of maintained the safety within his home. He had overloaded sockets in his bedroom, which sort of doubled up as a study. It was very dangerous. He had a really old electric blanket, so you know, we sat and chatted. We didn't sort of want to overwhelm him, but we sort of mentioned and highlighted the dangers of all these things. And with his permission, he followed us upstairs. He's like, oh, this is fantastic. And he's watching us, you know, so can we streamline this a little bit, reduce some of this overloading? And he's like, absolutely, no problem. And he was fascinated. He's hard of hearing as well, so we put a specialist alarm in for him. He was an engineer in his working life, so he saw us put the specialist alarm, which involves a vibrating pod as well as a strobe base by the side of his bed, which connects to Wi-Fi alarms throughout the property, upstairs, downstairs. And he was fascinated with it, so we were able to install that. We reduced his overloading. We strongly advised him to get rid of the electric blanket, which he did, and on our follow-up visit a couple of weeks later, that had been changed. He liaised with his daughter, that had been sorted, which was fantastic. But on the second visit, we noticed a smell of gas, which was terrifying. We asked questions, have you had the gas on? And he said, well, I had that on hours ago to heat the kitchen. He didn't have a proper radiator in the kitchen. And this is where our brilliant agency Cadent Gas comes in. We called them immediately and notified them about this smell. They came out within the hour. They were fantastic. They instructed us to obviously open windows, doors, turn off the gas at the gas mains, which we did, and we waited with this gentleman because he has issues with talking because of a stroke he's had in the past. We thought we'd sit with him and reassure him. He was fantastic. They had disconnected everything. They'd, with their sister agency as well, within time, a few days, they got him a new cooker because they discovered that was the leak source. They put a new radiator in so he wouldn't have to, you know, try and heat his kitchen up. Gosh, they did so many other things I can't remember now, but they were fantastic. Went back to see him and he's like, look at all this, look what I've got now. So that was one example of how we liaise with so many different agencies and how they are wonderful in their own right, aren't they?
Yeah. And that could very much have led to a hospital admission, couldn't it?
An explosion, yes, and it was a terraced property, but the things, he couldn't smell the gas either, could he? It was
No, yeah, and that's the big thing I think that we do is reduce readmissions to hospital. One guy that I took home, he lived in a caravan, really rickety old caravan, really poor condition, and it was all kind of cluttered as well, so we couldn't get around it. He'd been in hospital with sepsis, I think. When he got home, very wobbly on his feet, and he had to go out to like an outhouse to top up his electricity. There was no water supply in the caravan, so he had to go and fill up large containers of water. So very independent, refused in sort of referrals to falls prevention, carers, things like that. And then I had to spend a bit of time with him, talking to him about whether he was happy where he lived, whether he felt safe. He allowed me to refer him to social services. So when I called up, explained sort of the situation he was in, they put me through to the homelessness team, and he was rehoused that same day into a care home. Called him the next day on his mobile phone. They took him to have his hair cut, took him to have his COVID-19 jabs. He had new clothes, they helped him have a shower. So yeah, that was lovely. I kept in touch with him, and then eventually now he's rehoused into a bungalow. So we went out to see him. He was mobilising so much better. The bungalow was clutter-free, you know, well maintained. So he was in a much better place, sort of mentally and physically. He was doing better. So
he looked so well.
But there's so many examples we could give, isn't there? There's so many.
And those are two really lovely stories for the things that you do, because also you do advice about smoking cessation, don't you? And if you notice that a patient is smoking, you can help with fire retardant equipment.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, we can chat to them about whether they consider giving up and refer them on to the appropriate agencies, local chemists, doctors. But yeah, also if they're smoking in bed, if they're in their armchair but they don't look safe, you can see burn marks around the chair, the carpet. We'll put in fire retardant rugs, bedding, throws on the sofa.
And when they're
bins.
I mean, we went out recently to see somebody who is bedbound, not always on his own, most of the time on his own, but with his wife's out shopping or whatever, he's on his own. So you think, well, goodness, what would happen if he did set fire to his home somehow? He's right at the centre of it. So what I've done is I've liaised with the Orbit Housing, who own the property, and they can have his lifeline linked to the smoke detector, so that he wouldn't have to be responsible for doing anything. It would just send a message straight through that there is a fire. So, and they know that he's priority to get you pretty quickly.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
We talked to them, about making sure cigarettes are extinguished fully, not putting them in a plastic bin, things like that. So, from a fire service point of view, it's really good for us as well. We're reaching out to more people in the community, vulnerable people as well that wouldn't normally kind of refer themselves to our service. So, yeah, from the fire service point of view, it's brilliant. And then at the same time, it's helping out the NHS, we hope, and the patients. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if there was one thing that you could say about Warwickshire Fire and Rescue and Hospital Home, what's the one thing, the one good thing that you would say about it as a gold standard service?
There's so many things.
People sort of trust us. I don't know. They trust us and they allow us into their property. Most. You do get the odd person like, no, they're very private. That's fine. That's fair enough. We give them the advice, but I think a lot of people do trust us and they allow us in, and and if they're very proud, aren't they, some of the older generations, so we keep involved with them. We don't just leave them, drop them by, that's it, or do something. We'll go back and make sure they're okay, and we kind of earn their trust, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the fire service is good at.
Yeah.
Is earning the trust of the community.
Yeah, definitely. And that partnership working
works
so well. And it's like I said at the start, it's a very unique service, but I think if it's spread, it's just so good for everyone. It's good for the fire service, it's good for the NHS, it's good for the patients. So, I think that partnership working is key. And I think if they did it in different counties, it would only be a good thing.
Absolutely. From the hospital here, we can't say thank you enough for what you do, and I know you certainly feel part of our team, and long may our working relationship continue, because you do a fantastic job for our patients, and I know our ward staff love it when you turn up to take one of our patients home, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel.